Hello students, this is your teacher here. Welcome to another video lecture. In this lecture, we are going to discuss what is Dow Index. First of all, a Dow Index is a form of hazard survey, which means that in every industries or in every manufacturing operation, we usually conduct certain form of surveys to know the hazards that are or the hazards or parameters that are present in the operations that can contribute to major accidents. We usually list down all these form of hazard contributing factors, and a survey is usually carried out to prevent major accidents. Similar manner, a Dow index is also a form of hazard survey. Dow Index is a formal rating system. This can very well explain with the concept of an examination paper. We generally know that in an examination paper, for each right answers, marks are guaranteed or credits are given to each of the right answers, and marks are usually taken away for each of the wrong answers, or we can say that penalties are generally given for each wrong answers. And finally, we calculate or we sum up all the credits and penalties or all the marks that we have obtained, and we will come to a conclusion of a final rank or final marking system. In a similar manner, the Dow index, we also have some credits and penalties concept. Credits are generally given for each of the safety procedures or safety equipments in an operation, and penalties are generally given for each of the hazard contributing factors. And finally, a rating number, similar to an examination paper, the final score that you got. In a similar manner, a final rating number is given to the particular operation to show the relative ranking. Therefore, Dow index, for easier understanding, relate this concept with an examination paper where credits are guaranteed and penalties are guaranteed for each wrong answers, and we sum all the credits and penalties, and we will have finally a score or a particular number to show the relative ranking of the operation. Therefore, a Dow index is a formal rating system, something like an income tax, that provides penalties for hazards and credits are given for the safety equipments and procedures. And after calculating the penalties and credits, we usually have a final rating number that provides a relative ranking of the hazard. They are of two types. The first one, it is the Dow Fire and Explosion Index, or f&ei, and the second one, it is the Dow Chemical Exposure Index, or CEI. The first type of Dow index that we are going to discuss is Dow Fire and Explosion Index, which is generally designed for the rating relative hazards with the storage, handling and processing of explosive and flammable materials, and to know the area of exposure, and to know the expected losses in case of fire and explosion, etc. A Dow Fire and Explosion Index can be very well calculated by multiplying unit hazard factor and MF, which means material factor. A unit hazard factor is generally obtained by multiplying the general process hazard factor and the special process hazard factor. By calculating the equation that we have discussed earlier, that we can know the degree of hazard in a particular operation. If the value ranges between 1 and 60, the degree of hazard is light. 61 to 96, it is moderate. 97 to 127 is intermediate. 128 to 158 is heavy. Greater than 159 is generally a severe degree of hazard in an operation. In Dow Fire and Explosion Index equation, we saw a term called MF, or material factor. This is generally determined to know the flammable character or the explosive nature of a material that is used in an operation. That is, if the material factor obtained is very high, then we can conclude that the material used in the operation is of high explosive or flammable character. And if the material factor found out is very low, we can come to a conclusion that the material is of very low flammable character. And the material factor is generally used to find the function of the type of chemicals used. And as we have already discussed, a high value of material factor means the more flammable and explosive is the material. The next term that we found in the Dow fire and explosion index equation is the unit process hazard, which can be obtained by multiplying the general process hazard factor and the special process hazard factor. Therefore, the next procedure after the determination of the material factor in a Dow fire and explosion index is the determination of the general process hazard factor. As in general process hazard, the penalties are applied for the endothermic reactions, material handling and transfer, and the limited access or the distance for the emergency equipment and poor drainage of the flammable materials away from the process unit. All these factors, or for all these particular, we are applying penalties, and by applying that or that we can calculate the general process hazard factor. The next procedure after the determination of the general process hazard factor is to determine the special process hazard factor, which can be obtained by applying penalties for special process hazards are identified next, and it includes, that is, the special process hazards includes the toxic materials which could impede firefighting, the chances of dust explosion, and the low temperature operations with the potential embrittlement of carbon steel vessels, the quantity of flammable material, and whether any usage of fired heaters, and large rotating equipments include pumps and compressors. That is, we are applying penalties for these much particulars, and we can obtain the special process hazard factors. Therefore, we have find all the terms that we are having in the equation, that is the general process hazard factor, special process hazard factor, both multiplied to obtain the unit process hazard factor, and this unit hazard factor into the material factor will give finally the Dow fire and explosion index, so that we can have the degree of hazard in a particular operation. Next, we come up with the usage of Dow fire and explosion index. By finding the Dow f&ei, we can use that to determine the consequence of an accident, and this includes the maximum probable property damage and the maximum probable days outage, and it is useful for determining equipment spacing requirements, and this can be used to estimate the radius of exposure based on f&ei, so that any equipment located outside this distance would not be damaged by fire or explosion. Thank you students for your kind cooperation. Please do subscribe my channel, because I will be uploading so many videos that certainly will help you. So this is your teacher signing off. Peace out.